I wanted to extend what we did with the file uploader to be able to upload images with a preview first. So I wanted to be able to choose a file, view a preview of the image, and then only confirm the upload. So the difficulty or the interesting thing is that I want to be able to load a file from the local file system and display a preview of that file, which is an image, in the web page itself. So I have already prepared the template, not to waste too much time. And it works like this. So there is this is my div vTarget, as usual. And then I have various divs for the three stages. There is a selection stage, a preview stage, and then an upload stage. So if the selection is not done, I will be displaying this div, the first one, this one here. And this is similar to what we did before. There is one change. The input has now an accept specification, so that I'm sure that what the user selects needs to be an image. Okay? This is a way to specify the various extensions I accept. And when I select the file, instead of calling upload file, I simply call select file, because I want to display a preview before I upload it. So this is what happens if the selection is not done. Once the selection is done, unless we have uploaded, I'm gonna display an image. This image here is where the preview will be, and it has a source, which I say image URL. But this will not be a regular URL such as HTTP, etc., etc. It will be a string that will encode the image bytes. So what will happen is that I will read the image from the local disk, convert it into this string that represents the image bytes, and set the string that represents the image bytes into the image URL variable. And by setting it to this variable, this will display the preview. So this is a very useful thing to know, that images can be represented as strings that you can assign to the source field of images and obtain their display. Below this, there is a fairly traditional button that says, upload, basically. And when you click it, it will call upload file that will do the upload just as before. Okay? So the interesting pieces are these, that we select a file and then only we upload it. And the other interesting piece here is the story of this image URL that I will show you how to obtain. So if we move to index.js, we see that some portions of the code are already ready. To save time, I already declared the data. These are common things. Actually, uploaded file is not needed any longer. But the image URL is a string, and I initialize it to the empty string so that initially there is no image that will be displayed. I think null would also have worked, actually. Here is the file. There is a select file and then upload file. So let me complete for you select file, what we do there. So as before, I do let input is equal to event.target. So I grab the input field where the user has selected the file. This is just as before. App.file. You see I used now this global variable inside the app to store the file that you have selected, just to make it easier. App.file is equal to input.files of 0. So I selected the first file. I could generalize again the code so that you can select multiple images, but here we do one only. And if app.file, so if you have actually selected something, I do this. I say app.view selection done is equal to true, just to drive the UI. And then I want to read the file and put it into the image URL. This is the interesting portion. So I say let reader is equal to new file reader. A file reader is one of these primitive methods that the browser makes available to JavaScript, and it enables you to read a file from the local disk. Okay, Of course, there is some security in the browser that makes it so that you can only read a file that for which you have the file object, and that is that the user has selected. Okay, but this works in the background for you. Now, in the end, I want to say reader.read as data URL. So I want to read the image and convert it into a long URL that encodes the image bytes. App.file. And when I'm done, I want to do something else, right? So when I'm done, I essentially want to set this image URL to what has been read. So I need to add an event listener to the reader to detect when the reader is done to set the URL. So I do this business. We did a similar one the other time for the uploader. I can add an event listener to the reader, listening to the load event. And when the load event is fired, I will do this function that has the only purpose, so here is the body of the function, to say app vo image URL is equal to the reader result. Okay, so essentially this code does the following. It takes the event in which the user has selected a file. I take the input element, I take the file, and then I create a reader. I attach to the reader an event listener that when the reader is done reading will set app vo image URL to the result of the reader. And then I tell the reader to please read my file as a data URL. And the browser knows how to do that, and it knows how to read the image and convert it to this long string. And here, just for our interest, we do also console log. Here is how a data URL looks like, okay? And then I do console log of what? Of app vo image URL. But I'm sorry, I got confused. I put this in the wrong place. These two logs, we need to put them after the reader has finished reading. Okay? The upload function, I won't spend time on it, is exactly as before. Okay? So the upload file function, if there is a file specified, it takes the file type, the file name, it builds the URL for uploading it, it creates a request, it adds a listener to the request that when it's done, it says that the upload is complete, it opens the put request, and it sends the file. This is exactly the code we had before, modulo that there is not a small portion at the beginning in which I need to grab the file, because the file, I have already obtained it up here, okay? But so there is no conceptual change to the upload file function. The only thing that I'm doing is this business when the user selects a file to set the preview. So now we can test it. I need to, run Py4 Web. Okay, no errors, that's good. I need to reload these, and now I can give it a try. So I choose a file. Here I have a rubber duck. I will be selecting the rubber duck and saying open. Here is the preview. And if we look at the console, we should see how the data URL looks like. So this is how a data URL looks like. I wonder if I can make it bigger. You see there is data:image/JPEG. So it gives the format of the image. It could be an image or in another, in another framework, in another encoding. Then it says that the image bytes are encoded in base 64. Then there is a comma, and then these are the actual bytes of the image. Okay, well, it continues, I guess. So it's, somewhat long. So it's a long string, essentially. And this long string is being set as the image URL. So if I do inspect element here, one sec, you see the image source has become this very long data URL. Is glitching a little bit, probably because this is so long. Okay, so this here is truncated, but it's actually quite long. So I have converted the image into a long string, and now I can upload the image. Note, if I wanted, I could also just upload the string. It would just be a slightly bigger version of the image. I'm not doing it just because, I don't know, there is no very good reason, except that uploading directly the image is a little bit more efficient. But there are many cases in which it's just very convenient to upload an image URL. Anyway, now I click on upload, and this uploads it. So not so much to see, but if we go here, we see that we have uploaded a rubber duck JPEG of type image./JPEG, and the content is this long binary string that we cannot make sense of, which is the JPEG bytes. So everything works. So the takeaway is this: you can convert images to data URLs. These data URLs are simply long strings that encode the image bytes, and they are a very convenient way to manipulate images. You could be uploading this data URL, you can be downloading it as part of JSON, and if you set the data URL to the source field of an image, you obtain the display of the image.